Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of WORBLI Talks. Today, I have the honor and the pleasure to sit down with Mr. Robert Dewilder, who is, of course, the CTO, Chief Technical Officer for WORBLI. Robert, so much going on with WORBLI, so much going on in the space. It's really cool to finally be able to drag you into one of these and sit down and just have a quick chat with you.
Yeah, no, the pleasure is all mine, and thank you for having us on, or having me on.
Talk to Dominic, and Dominic had mentioned to me that you were kind of instrumental in the decision to actually use EOSIO. And I think that the question that I wanted to ask you was, why did you guys choose EOS for WORBLI?
Yeah, so before I joined WORBLI, I'd been interested in DLT for several years. And my background is I've spent 20 years working for Sony Music, so a very corporate kind of enterprise environment. And I found when Bitcoin came out, I'm also kind of a gold person. I like physical gold and stuff, you know, kind of everything that came out of the 2008 financial crisis and stuff. So Bitcoin, aside from its kind of decentralization and kind of providing an alternative to kind of the power structures that were, looking at it from a technical person, it's extremely elegant. And just the disciplines that they married to build that system, it kind of blew me away. It's like game theory, economics, cryptography, just straight up kind of programming, peer-to-peer. It was very interesting. And then again, being a gold person, it is basically kind of gold mining in software. Then Ethereum came out, and kind of it was a natural evolution to kind of create a general computing platform on top of it. So, however, I always kind of thought of both of them as proof of concepts. Never thought either of them would have the legs they had. I mean, again, very impressive. If I was the creator of either one of them, that could be my opus as a professional. But again, you just kind of learn that the first generation of stuff is usually iterated upon, and it's just kind of a lesson I've learned from the years in my profession. So basically, the metrics that I was seeing, you know, the transaction throughput and just the whole governance. Again, coming from an enterprise space where we were looking to be enterprise friendly, there's no way Sony would use a public blockchain, right? It's just, or any real kind of big company. There's just too much variability. And then also big companies have, you know, compliance requirements that they have to meet based on stockholders and just kind of internal governance. So I was looking more towards the permissioned blockchain implementation. So like Hyperledger, Corda, stuff like that. And then just Googling, I came upon EOSIO. Really wasn't familiar with Dan at the time or Block One or anything. And then first of all, read their white paper and was really impressed. I mean, it was addressing a lot of the, I think a lot of the challenges that, you know, the current crop of blockchains had. One of them was just the hardcore unforgivability of it, right? You make a mistake, yeah, and that's it. So that was something that was also not going to really work for what we were trying to do. So the white paper was good. I've been interested in kind of high throughput, kind of volume and scaling. And not to get too technical, but I recognize that the EOSIO software was taking a lot of lessons from the LMAX architecture, which is an exchange. It's an exchange software that's meant to optimize throughput on single-threaded workflows. So I, you know, that gave it a degree of credibility. And then, just to be honest, there was quite a bit of hype at the time around EOS. And then just the massive war chest they built up. I mean, just the fact that people were putting a lot of their, you know, their money behind it. I just figured, well, yeah, and I looked at what was already delivered. This was probably around January of 2018. So Dawn was already out and it was runnable. So yeah, it kind of fit what we wanted to do nicely. Aside from the technology, what came with it is the relationships with all the block producer teams, right? So if we decided to go with Hyperledger or something, we would have had to bootstrap that from the ground up, like who would run our validator nodes and whatnot. But being part of the EOS ecosystem, that comes with a lot of very capable teams around the world that know the software, know the space, and are passionate about it. So that was an added benefit, but to be honest, that was emergent. I didn't recognize that when I made the decision. So,
if you were to kind of vocalize what the difference between Worbli, mainnet, and other sister chains are, if you were to break that down, how would you do so?
Yeah, so just right now, we have no intention of playing with the core protocol. That's just, first of all, it's just, it works fine for what we're doing right now. And then also, you run a real risk of a hard fork and you're not able to maintain it. And just, Block One has way more resources than we do. So again, we have no intention of deviating from that. So our differentiators are in our contract layer, and it's mostly, well, it's in all aspects. And we took a lot of lessons. Worbli, participated in the launch of the mainnet. And to be honest, I was just, wow, this is kind of too much democracy. There weren't, decisions are hard. There's too many voices and whatnot. So the main one, which I think is obvious to everyone, is we're starting centralized. So we are able to pivot much more quickly and just kind of come to consensus on any changes very rapidly. And I think that gives us a lot of freedom and agility to just get the chain launched. Plus, I will be the first one to say, and I think anyone who says differently either should be rich already or is just not telling the truth. I don't know what is going. This drives into a later question, but I'm not really sure. I can't predict what's in store for blockchain in the future. So we want to be very reactive to application needs. It's going to be applications that really drive adoption of the technology and stuff. So in that aspect, what we really want to do is provide predictable resource access to resources. So again, coming from an enterprise background, I generally have a problem with the utility token model. It's too volatile. Essentially, if a company wants to do anything major on the blockchain, well, man, they're going to have some sort of currency traders just managing the token economics if they have heavy usage of it. I'm not sure I see that as a real kind of viable long-term solution. So one of the big things we've done is we've taken out the RAM market. So we're essentially giving away RAM. So as you know, we do KYC. So anyone who gets an account on the chain is going through a KYC process. That is the same for app developers. And then apps are vetted. We're looking for quality applications to come on the chain. And that's not to put down any other apps out there. Every app that's out there is helping blockchain adoption. But we're looking to really drive kind of the enterprise use case to attract enterprises. I'm just kind of a firm believer that adoption kind of generally for new technology comes from the top down. It comes from enterprises and governments kind of showing what can be done. They generally have the resources and the patience to kind of see it through. Whereas blockchain in general seems to me have been more of a populist kind of movement. It started kind of from the ground up. So again, back to the question, RAM, we're taking away the volatility of that. We just will give it away to apps. This also should make app development easier. again, this will play out as apps develop on our platform, but I think it maybe eliminates the need to use the user scope and managing who's paying for RAM on that. If the RAM's getting given away, the dApps can just use their scope and pay for the RAM. Another thing is the CPU and net resources. As you know, depending on usage, there can be a wide range of variability in what you get for your stake. So we're eliminating the variability under so we no longer have a congestion threshold. We're essentially going to push the congestion threshold to 0. So the rate limiting is there from the beginning, and then that just provides predictability. What you pay for is what you get. So that's another one. I've spoken to the KYC aspect, but on top of that, we're going to add other fields. So we're implementing various layers of verification for user accounts. So you could have an accredited investor, institutional investor, an exchange, what have you. It'll be dynamic, so we can add to that list as required. And then we're working on updates to the token contract so that you can issue a token that's restricted to a certain class or classes of users. So this runs into we want to have a compliant chain that allows various businesses, types of businesses to carry on business in a compliant manner. And then let's see, finally, or not finally, but we are, let's see, stability, or no, performance. So the fact that we lean more towards the permissioned side of the spectrum, even though it is permissioned, but it's not centralized. So we're using, most of our block producers participate on the mainnet. But what that allows us, since they're known entities and it's predictable, we have a lot more levers we can pull in optimizing the chain. So we can mess with the producer schedule based on network latency or proximity. And then also probably what we will do is, first of all, we have regular meetings with the block producers, and we're focusing on performance. And then also we can commoditize the hardware if we need to. So, if a point in time comes where we need to really optimize the performance, we can come up with standard hardware that everyone can run. And then there's a lot of other things that probably aren't obvious even to me that we can do, since we've just got a known set of producers and whatnot. So
that's a pretty good breakdown of everything. I think the fact that predictable costs for application developers is a huge one, as well, as you mentioned, and the ability to kind of modify the change, which also kind of segues into the next question that I wanted to ask you. And this is something that I'm sure a lot of people are wondering. What are kind of some of the technical developments that are on the horizon for WORBLI in the next 3 to 6 months?
Well, yeah, so all of these things we're working on. So one of the big one is really just improving our KYC process, and then also implementing a corporate KYC process. And then also, again, this is related to the previous question, setting those KYC properties or verifications as part of the account profile, and then exposing that for other contracts. So as I said, token contracts will definitely be leveraging that, but this will be available for any third-party applications they want to. If they want to restrict activities to a certain class of users, they certainly can do that. Another thing we're currently working on is our utility model. So that's another difference, and it's basically how we're handling the inflation. So really, and there's a whole separate paper on that, and we can probably do another session just based on that. And that wasn't, most of that work was another colleague of ours that we're working with. But essentially, it promotes utility of the chain. So most of the rewards go to the app developers. to do that. And one of the things with the current implementations is, at the end of the day, the core token is a utility token, right? So I fear that if you don't have the right economic model, you could have a lot of these tokens sitting on the sideline. So the chain is never optimized the utility. So again, our utility model really promotes either lending out your tokens for someone who needs it, or just rewarding utility on the chain for using it. So our hope is that there's not a lot of tokens sitting there idle, just taking up time. So and then anything else that we're doing? Yeah, I mean, that's the general thing. And then really just trying to bring applications onboarding. So we spend quite a bit of time just really talking to various applications. A lot of the thing too is really educating people about blockchain, right? I've worked with a lot of highly technical people my whole career, and a lot of them still don't understand blockchain. And it actually took me a while to really figure it out. And then I know this is kind of reductive, but essentially it's a database. The blockchain is the data store, and the contracts are your stored procedure layer. This database has some very unique properties. First of all, it's kind of expensive, so you want to use that, but it's also, it kind of stores trust if you want to kind of distill it to a certain layer. So it's basically tamper-proof, it's distributed, and it's transparent. So it's publicly auditable. And those are extremely valuable properties. But I come from more of what really drives me is decentralization in general. So I'm not a blockchain maximalist or anything. I see blockchain as a piece of a decentralized kind of economy. So there's other, and I kind of equate where blockchain or decentralization is kind of where the internet was in the mid to late 90s, right? It was, you know, back then you couldn't support the major businesses we think of right now. I mean, you couldn't even stream video back then, right? So you didn't have the Facebook, the Netflix, the YouTube. So that's where we are. So, you know, so if you look at blockchain as kind of the database layer, we still are looking for a robust and reliable storage layer. It looks like IPFS might be coming on that. And then you've got kind of the content delivery aspect to it. And I know you've got web torrent and stuff like that. But there's still a lot of tooling and kind of infrastructure to be built.
I totally get what you're saying. Now, blockchain is a new technology, and I think that you likening it to the days of the internet before, when we were still figuring out what the internet is like very accurate. And that being said, of course, that's going to bring, with any emerging technology, certain difficulties. What would you say some of the biggest challenges that you've had to solve technically have been with WORBLI so far?
Well, me personally, it was really, first of all, wrapping my head around what blockchain was. Again, I think there was just a lot of misinformation, a lot of hype. I consider myself very technical, but I had trouble wrapping my head around, like you would hear people talk and they would be saying, oh, it'll replace the cloud providers and stuff. And I'm just like, that doesn't compute to me. And then finally, once you get through the noise and you realize what it is, then it's like, oh, okay, that's cool. But in our implementation, it was really the hardest part. And again, this is what I struggle with, is I feel like a lot of effort is put into the token economics and not the actual solving the problems, right? But I do think blockchain is going to play a major role in identity, is a global KYC solution. So implementing a global KYC solution is just a bear. You know, various jurisdictions have various qualities of databases and stuff. They have different rules. and whatnot. So I think we really kind of were punching over our weight class on a global rollout of KYC. So that was that was a big thing. And then really finding technical resources that kind of know the whole gamut. I mean, you know, like, again, blockchain in and of itself is just a piece of the puzzle, right? So, but you really need people who are familiar with kind of web development or even just desktop app development and familiar with blockchain and how to apply it, right? So one thing we also don't want to do is, you know, as we have business prospects come to us, we try to be honest and go, well, do you really need the blockchain for this? So you know, we want to drive valuable use cases because, again, it's early days, and we, as much as we want to build a business, we also want to drive adoption of this technology. And you know, a few years down the line, we don't want people going, yeah, those are just gimmicks and whatnot. So.
Yeah, it's something that Dominic's spoken about a lot, is not just putting things on blockchain just to be on blockchain, but real use cases that are either going to be better, faster, or just above the type of technology we have now through using blockchain, which makes a lot of sense to me. Where do you see WORBLI heading in the next 3 years, Rob, the next 2 to 3 years?
Well, in general, I see WORBLI heading towards decentralized. So again, we've started centralized. Just again, it was kind of lessons learned. Essentially trying to herd cats when everyone's got an opinion. It's kind of an impossible job. So what we definitely want to hand off control of the chain to the community. So that's one thing. And then also just building applications, getting applications launched. So we've got the ones we've currently publicized, and we constantly are talking to other app teams to build on it. And I'm hesitant to provide predictions in general, just because, first of all, I think very few of the predictions have kind of come to fruition. And I'll be the first to know, like I said, the internet, my internet analogy, it's the same thing. I'm a firm believer in blockchain or decentralization in general. And to be honest, I think one of the major problems the space has had right now is people are trying to back blockchain into existing businesses. First of all, I'm not sure they really apply. But second of all, blockchain is a disruptive technology. So, I mean, a lot of these businesses, if they introduce blockchain, it takes their business away. I mean, to be honest, a lot of businesses are in business because they're a trusted third party. And that's essentially what decentralization kind of removes the need for. So again, I think the real stuff that I'm looking forward to in blockchain and decentralization in general is new applications that we aren't even aware of yet. And again, the big thing is socializing it, taking out the mystique to it, because it's not, if you distill it to the core, and I know calling it a database is reductive, but you've got to kind of start somewhere familiar where people can wrap their head around, and then you get the entrepreneurs and the developers who go, aha, I can use it for this. So yeah, I really see WORBLI maturing, getting our usage algorithms, and really facilitating kind of the financial services platform in the near future, and then we hand it off. And so, you know, if I'm still working as CTO, it'll be by the good graces of the community and not a centralized thing.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people forget that WORBLI is going to be moving to a decentralized model eventually. I wanted to kind of step back a second on a comment that you had made previously, and you spoke a little bit about the KYC, and I actually saw something today which I dropped into the Telegram group, as I often do with different articles I see are kind of interesting. And Switzerland, for example, is moving towards a little bit more of like a regulated market. So I think that KYC plays into that in such a way that it really is going to be relevant in a lot of ways in the future. Where do you see, I mean, we've spoken about where you see Worbli heading. Where do you see blockchain heading kind of around that same time frame of 2 to 3 years?
Man, blockchain, again, it's a piece of the decentralized puzzle. So you have kind of the perfect fit use cases right now. Supply chain, kind of the big financial firms, they already know kind of how they want to transfer of value and whatnot. That's fine. I do see KYC is related to identity. So I see blockchain really playing a key role in identity. And one thing we're looking into doing is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Solid project by Tim Berners-Lee, the inventor of the internet, but he's got a project called Solid that's all about individuals owning their own personal data and stuff. So, I mean, it's very early days, but we're looking to integrate that. But it's really, and then it really depends on where the technology goes. So one of the big things that I read in the white paper, and I wasn't sure how they were going to do it, is the scaling. Right? Everyone is talking about the scaling, but as far as I know, at the end of the day, blockchain transactions need to be serialized. So I know there's stuff you can do, which I think they're doing a lot of in the EOS software to parallelize, but the actual execution of the actions need to be serialized. So, and then there's talking about IBC and whatnot. I don't know. If I had to guess, I'm thinking what you're going to do is, I'm not sure how important native IBC is in the long run. I'm thinking, and again, if you use the database analogy, you have a web app that could be talking to 5 different databases, right? Maybe one that stores your user profile, one that stores your account balance and whatnot. I can guarantee you most of them aren't synchronizing or talking to each other. That IBC is done at the app layer. So this is where I think for a long time there's been kind of a maximalism in kind of the blockchain world, where now it's a major player in kind of a whole decentralized kind of economy. So I think we might just see purpose-built blockchains, right? So you may have a financial services blockchain, you may have an identity blockchain, and whatnot, and they're essentially public databases that people can, or apps can just query and do their business. But there's still a lot of tools that need to be built around it.
I think that, as you said, the beauty of keeping Worbli kind of dynamic is that you'll be able to adapt to a lot of these things in the future.
Yeah, one of the big things is just again, the database analogy. It's too technical for the average user, right? I mean, your average user doesn't know about the database. It doesn't know if you're running Oracle, MySQL. It doesn't even know they have an account on it. So I never understood asking people, hey, create an account on my chain. That'd be kind of similar to me going, hey, I've got a MySQL database. Come create an account on it, and you can store some random data on it and play with it. So I think really abstracting that to the users, and again, it's going to be the apps. The apps are what are going to power this. But I think a big thing is, I think managing keys, especially if there's a bunch of different blockchain, I think that's one of the prerequisites. A good kind of key management solution. And this is probably coupled with the identity solution, where it's kind of securely, but users don't have to think about and manage the various keys they're going to need to operate in kind of a decentralized / blockchain powered world.
Robert, I won't keep you any longer. It looks like the sun has gone down there. I know you have a big family, and I know you have a lot of work to do. It's been a pleasure to sit down with you. I really hope that we can do it again sometime. I'd love to do the token resource economy at some point. We have so much to talk about. There's so much going on with Worbli, and it's just nice to be able to catch you for a few minutes and sit down with you.
No, absolutely. It was my pleasure. And yeah, these are helpful to me as well. So yeah, I'd love to join again. So, and often.
Great. We'll see you soon, sir. You take
Yes,
care.
thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.